Welcome to Permission to Thrive. I'm your host, Suzi Lula. As a spiritual therapist for over 20 years, I have the honor and privilege of ushering women and mothers just like you on a journey from simply surviving to powerfully thriving. I also have the honor of raising our son, Will, who is now a young adult, with my longtime partner, Jamie, so I'm right there on the journey with you. Consider this your personal sanctuary, your space to meet your heart, embrace your messy, and come home to your most authentic, extraordinary self. My hope is that you leave resourced and inspired because you are here to shine. Welcome to Permission to Thrive. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Permission to Thrive. We have a treat for you today. We are talking about all things manifestation and manifestation in an easy, graceful, effortless way. And I have my dear friend and soul psychology coach, Joe Argazzi, with me, whom all of you are getting to know, I hope. But Joe and I are going to dive into this conversation that I think everyone is interested in because we're all manifesting all the time. It's just, are we manifesting the life of our dreams, the life that is within us, the life that we've come here to live in an easy, graceful, effortless, fulfilling, satisfying way? So
I'm
welcome,
like, oh,
Joe.
sorry.
Jump on in.
I got inspired already. It's like what you just said. It's like, because we are manifesting anyway. And are we doing it by default, which oftentimes we do because we're unconscious or not as conscious as we could be, or are we manifesting by design? And
Mm,
therein lies the difference. Designing the life that we truly say we want to have. And if it's not showing up for you, that's what this talk is about. If it's
mm,
not showing up, there's something blocking. And it's
mm.
not that you don't desire it, and it's not that you don't want it, but that's what we want to dive deep with today and get to the point that might be blocking that for you. Does that sound good?
Oh, I love it. Already you've made such a powerful distinction. I'm taking notes already. The distinction between manifesting by default
Mm,
or manifesting by design. And I think that will speak to many of us. I know it speaks to my former life. I say former life,
yeah.
my my former life of creating by default, creating by generational patterns that I was stuck in, and knowing that I was doing it and I didn't have the tools at the time to find a different way out. And as well, the knowing that I was manifesting by default, by this generational patterning that I had been conditioned to receive, was so painful because I also knew deep inside of me, no, there's an authentic me inside of me. There's a different life. I knew I wanted deeper connections and deeper intimacy. I knew
Mm,
the mother I wanted to be, and I knew the way I wanted to relate with Will, and all of this is manifestation. And I could feel that inside of me. It was underneath what you're talking about, the default and the ways that sometimes we're stuck in old patterns and we can even know it, and that can be so painful. I appreciate very much this distinction already
mm.
early on, default or design.
Yeah, yeah. And to that point too, one of the things for me in terms of creativity and manifesting was I thought if I'm a good person, then my life should reflect that. And on one level it does, but there are universal laws at play that I was unaware of that actually are running my life, all of our lives. And the more I became conscious and aware of these universal laws, the more I could bring myself into alignment with them. So it wasn't about being a good person. It was about understanding these laws that are at the effect of my life. And how can I utilize them to really create by design the life that I'm truly wanting? And
Hmm.
like you said, that from a default perspective, there were hidden beliefs that I was unaware of. Part of what we're doing here is we're making the unconscious conscious. And that's why the diving deep is so important, because I can understand things intellectually. Then why isn't my life out picturing
Yeah.
the way I was hoping it would? Something was off, something was missing. And what is that? What was that? And through the work that we're doing in soul psychology and in that course and utilizing that spiral of transformation, that's what allowed me to dive deep underneath. And I wasn't aware of these hidden belief systems that were still, it's like an operating system on an old computer. It was operating without my awareness. And therefore, that's why my life was out picturing a particular level and not the level I thought it could be. But
Hmm.
once I became aware of that, and we'll talk about that, that's where the survival self and the inner child work lies. But that's also where the freedom
Yeah.
lies to begin
Yeah.
to experience the real life that I said that I want and that I do want. And am now, because of that work, experiencing. I hope I didn't say too much. I hope you
Oh,
all
that's so
were able to
great.
track that.
I'm taking notes and I'm trying to keep up with you. So there's two big areas and arenas that I want to make sure that we touch upon here because they're both really important. I think most of us would agree we are interested in creating a really rich quality of life where we have freedom to
Mm,
choose and to feel that we have dominion over our lives and that we are creating the life that is deep within us. Everyone has that life that you know you're meant to live. And it can be frustrating when you have that life inside of you and you know the kind of relationships you want and you're aware of this life that you're meant to live and want to live. And then there's that space in between. So, the two things that you've already touched upon that I'd like to dive in on, number one, you referenced a belief system that you had that if you were a good person, then
mm.
good things would come. If you were a good person, you would manifest well. And so I want to break down that because it's really important. I think we're
Yeah,
all conditioned to differing
yeah,
degrees to think, well, I'm a good person. Why the heck is that relationship not coming to me right now? I've been looking for
totally.
a relationship for 10 years. I'm a really good person. So I want to break that down. And
Great.
also what you referenced about the unconscious, the subconscious, definitely that is the whole real heart of manifestation is for us to uncover, well, what is really running me? Because I know I'm a good person and I know what I want, and this is in the conscious mind, but it's really what is in the unconscious mind that's actually running us. So I want to go back to the
Great.
first thing you said, which is this belief where most of us are fed, and it beckons that question, why do bad things happen to good people?
Yes.
So you referenced universal law, universal principles. And so there are principles that are the same for all of us. And those principles and laws, for instance, one is gravity. Gravity works whether you're a really good person or whether
That's
you're
right.
a not so good person. Gravity is going to keep you here anchored on planet Earth, regardless of whether you're a good person or not. And that is the law of manifestation. The law of manifestation, you are going to manifest what is the most dominant feeling and what are the most dominant thoughts in your consciousness, and most of which are housed in the unconscious, as you said. So, manifestation, there's a law that says whatever is happening dominantly within you, that you will manifest. And it's a law. The outer world reflects your inner world. It's a law. It's the same for everyone. It's the same whether you're a really good person or not such a good person. It's a law irrelevant of your quote goodness.
And irrelevant of whether you believe in it or not. Right?
Exactly.
So what's really cool is that even if you don't believe in it, you're sure as heck at the effect of it. But once you understand the law, it's like the law of gravity, we can put a man on the moon,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that this is so important what you're saying because I want to
Mm.
be a really good person. But I don't want anymore to be a good person in order to get what I manifest. I want to be a good
Beautifully said.
person Yeah, right? I want to be a good
Yeah.
person because it feels really good to be a
Yeah.
good person. So I
Yes.
want to be a good person to bring that everywhere. And we're taught to be a good person in order to get something. And so we want to break that correlation because it does feel good to be a good person. So we can have a both and here. I want to be a good person because it feels really good. And I'm not expecting, that's not the way the manifestation process works. So then, to your point, we're always manifesting.
Yeah.
We're always manifesting. And that's when it gets really interesting to me
Mm.
because most of us are taught that we are manifesting from our conscious mind. Most of us are taught, say affirmations. I am worthy. I am whole. I am abundant. I am prosperous. And I know I went through a period of my life where I was saying, I am abundant. I am prosperous. But my unconscious mind, the larger part of me, was going, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're not abundant. Just look around. You're not abundant. You feel not enough. You're not abundant. You feel not as good as the next person. So my conscious mind was thinking that it was saying and doing all the quote right things, but my unconscious mind wasn't aligned. And my learning, similar to what you were saying at the beginning, to really dive deeper. And often, when I'm working with clients or students, you may have the same experience.
Mm. Hmm.
When these limiting thoughts, oh, I'm not all that. I'm not as good as she is. I'm not as good as he is. They have this. I didn't get that. When all of these limiting beliefs begin to unearth, most people are taught to resist all of that. And it like, oh, I don't want to sit with the pain of not feeling good enough. I don't want to sit with the shame of not feeling good enough. And
Exactly.
the only difference is I've just learned to welcome them. I say, thank you. Thank you, universe, for unearthing these beliefs. So I unearthed beliefs like I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as Joe. I'm not as good as Jane Doe. And I welcome them.
Yeah,
I
I want
learned
to
to,
insert something right here, and yeah, to welcome and embrace them, but I want your listeners to know my experience of that. And hear this with as much compassion as you possibly can. It's painful. It hurts. It often comes with tears. Sometimes it comes with anger and frustration because I'm tapping into those real deep core belief systems that I took on unconsciously as a little boy, as a
mm,
very young little person. And so to even touch that wound is oftentimes very painful. But like Suze, what you're saying, and to the listeners, if we're able to, and although it feels antithetical, if you're able to sit with that pain,
mm,
whatever is in the way is the way. I promise you, it won't consume you. What you'll do is you'll begin to befriend it, you'll bring love and compassion to it, and it will begin to soften. It's the
mm,
thing we've been avoiding our entire life. It's also the thing that was blocking me from experiencing healthier, more loving relationships. The thing that was blocking me from experiencing more abundance in terms of health, in terms of finance, in terms of creativity, in terms of a sense of really belonging,
mm,
you know, because I wasn't just mentally trying to, yes, of course I belong, and yes, of course I deserve. That's like the software. It's like the affirmations or software. It was the hardware that runs the show, and the hardware was saying, you're really not important. You're really not lovable. You're really not worthy.
mm,
And quite honestly, who wants to sit with those feelings? But I'm telling you, that is where the magic lies.
mm. Can
That
you
is where the freedom lies. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. That's so beautiful. And it just opens my heart
Yeah,
to hear you speak to, of course, it's so understandable that we would be taught to resist it.
yeah.
And we would want to go in any direction but that direction. So maybe you can continue to elaborate or share anything that feels relevant to your journey around sitting with that pain within your life and how and the connection with manifestation.
Well, sure, because in manifesting, let's take the biggie that we all want. We all want to feel loved. We want to
Mm,
feel seen and we want to feel heard, right? And so, certainly for me to enter a relationship hoping, oh, they're gonna, and this is all on the unconscious, by the way, it's the hard drive, that's running the show. So I would pick someone, oftentimes, who would reflect back to me how I was raised, a parent that was unavailable, a parent that was not necessarily the most loving, a parent that was maybe an avoidance, right? And so I'm trying to work out, all on the unconscious level, a way to maybe finally get them to see me, to validate me, to affirm me. And so when I think of that little boy who was really running the show, by the way, emotionally, trying to get his needs met one more time, I have such compassion for him now. And what I do is when I see him go to make these choices, I'll sit him down. I think of myself, and this has been really helpful. I think of myself as two people. There's the adult who understands these principles and these universal laws, absolutely. And I think of this little kid who didn't have the cognitive reasoning of universal law or universal principle. He just took literally what he was given at a very young age, and he interpreted that as not being lovable, not being worthy, not being cared for, not feeling important. So if that's his belief system, guess what? That's what's running the whole show. That's the hard drive. So I can say all the affirmations I want and even believe it to a degree as an adult. But if the core belief is unworthiness, then guess what's going to manifest?
mm,
Maybe temporarily I might get the thing, but that's just it. It's temporary at best because the core belief system is I don't deserve, I'm not worthy, I'm not important. And so that's what must show up in my life.
mm.
It's not a personal thing. And it took me a long time to understand that because I'm a good guy. So why isn't love coming to me? Because there was a core belief system that didn't feel seen and heard and appreciated and validated. And it
Mm.
was only until I got through the work that we do in like soul psychology, that's why it was so pivotal in my life, where I was able to tap into that painful place. And here's the paradox, pain becomes the portal. As I was able to sit with that pain, which means I'm sitting with that little guy who really believed he wasn't worthy and wasn't lovable and wasn't cared for and didn't matter. I could, even sharing that with you right now, Suze, I could get tearful around it because he's
Would
such a sweetheart. Go ahead.
would you allow yourself to, if it feels comfortable for you, to get a little tearful about it? Because I can also feel how
You do it.
compassionate I feel
Yeah.
for this part of you. And I love how you're explaining that it's like you have two people within you, and this part of you is real. It's a little guy within you that had certain experiences and they were real. You lived through them. So could you just allow yourself to stay there to whatever degree feels comfortable to
Yeah,
you?
sure. When I started to do this work through our course here in soul psychology and got in touch with him, and
Mm,
I could feel where his sadness and his fear of being alone and just really not being important,
mm,
not feeling seen, not feeling valid, feeling invisible, really feeling that he didn't matter.
mm.
And when I sit with him now and how he would act in so many different ways to try and get his needs met, that's all that was happening there. And he gave away his toys. I think of this little kid that had a party that he didn't have any friends growing up. And so here's this 7-year-old little boy in the back porch who literally created a raffle and raffled off all of his toys because that was the way all the other little kids would finally come over
Mm.
because they thought they were going to receive something, and they did. And then when the raffling was done, they all left. But that little boy then began to, I know, right? It's like, I love him so much because that was the best he could. He figured out a way to get them temporarily. And that's how clever he was. And I love that about him, by the way, right? But it was still based on a belief system that he wasn't. worthy,
Mm,
didn't belong, that he's not important. And that's what was running the show. As I grew into an adult, then instead of giving away my toys, I gave away my money. I gave away my body. I gave away my physical possessions to try and get love. So it just played itself out on a bigger scale. But
mm,
the energy was exactly the same. It was coming from a deficit of not feeling enough.
mm,
So when I sit with him now and I'm able to say, oh, honey, it's okay. Of course, you want to give things away. Of course, you're scared. Of course, you don't feel important. You know what? I see you. I can be with you. Tell me more.
mm.
Must have been so scary. You must have felt so alone. And you've been carrying that around for how long now? I'm so sorry. That bit of compassion, Suze, with him, for the first time in his life, he felt seen.
Mm,
Not because of what he had to offer, but because of who he is.
mm,
And that shifted everything. So when we're talking about manifestation, it all begins at the deepest level. What is your belief system for real about life?
mhm.
We can say these beautiful things like Einstein's quote, oh, it's a friendly universe. But I'm here to tell you, he didn't believe that. That wasn't his experience. But here's where the real healing happened. As I began to sit with him and experience his pain and his sadness in all its iterations, and I met him with compassion and with love and non judgment. And because he began to feel seen and heard, and here it is, he started to feel safe.
Mm.
He wasn't alone anymore. And there was no one from the outside doing that for him. No one externally was validating him. I was validating him. And the more I've been able to do that, the safer he felt, and the more he was able to start to expand and truly grow and become his most authentic self. We hear that a lot. Oh, be your most authentic self. Well, you want to get that for real? Here's how you begin that,
Mm.
you know. And then my belief system in the hard drive, if you will, started to shift for real, not pretense, not saying a lovely affirmation. By the way, nothing wrong with affirmations. But if the hard drive is, hey, I don't deserve, I don't matter, scarcity and lack thinking based upon his experience as a little person, you can say all the affirmations you want. It's not going to change ultimately in terms of what you really want to manifest until that changes. And this is the work. I promise you, if you're willing to sit with that part of yourself, that's where real transformation happens. That's where the magic happens. And when that part of you begins to feel safe and seen and heard, life changes. There's freedom. There's a newfound freedom here to be experienced, not intellectually, experientially, emotionally. And now we're tapping into a whole new way of being. Please go ahead, Suze.
Well, you're describing so beautifully that you were able then to give to that younger part of yourself what that little guy missed and needed. And so, the way that you're describing, first of all, even that you break your quote self down into these two parts, you have your adult part and you have this little boy experience. And every one of us has had a little girl, little boy, little they experience that we have each gone through on this earth, and to differing degrees have had some of our needs not met. And when we talk about manifestation, then we unconsciously get to our adult life and we're thinking, I need to manifest XYZ. I want to manifest XYZ. And we don't realize we're wanting to manifest that really to soothe the little part inside of us that we think that external thing is going to be the thing.
Exactly.
That's why manifestation can be so confusing to people.
Exactly.
And so, what you're saying is that in the manifestation process, when you become aware, you became aware that there was a younger part of you who wanted certain things in life, but felt underneath it all, I'm not really worthy. I'm not really important. I'm not really enough. And when you sat with those feelings, these different experiences came back to you, like being a little boy. I can just see you being a little boy, and such a good little boy, and just wanting friends. Like any little boy, any little girl out there just wants friends, to belong, to feel like we're a part of something. And so you had a raffle in your backyard, and all the kids came, and then the raffle was over, and then all the kids left. And you felt like, see, I'm not important. So, why is this so relevant to everyone listening in your manifestation? What does this have to do with wanting to manifest that career or that relationship or that next home? It has everything to do with it, because the unconscious part of you was still, as an adult, carrying that sadness and that sense of loss and grief and the limited way that you were identifying yourself. So, what you're saying is, as I was doing this work, I unearthed places inside of me that identified myself as not worthy, not lovable. And I think for everyone listening, we all have those places inside of us that when we get really still, it's a feeling in our gut, a feeling in our heart, a feeling in a part of our body that's carrying that angst and unprocessed, unhealed wounding that you said. And that place inside doesn't need the next shiny car. And it actually doesn't need that relationship, even though that place thinks, which is why I like that you have yourself divided into these two parts, because of course that part would think, well, let me just have a lover now. Let me just be in a relationship now. That will take the place of these friends that I didn't have, and then I'll feel worthy, and I'm still looking for that thing. But what you're saying that's so beautiful is that you became the manifestation. You became that for
Oh,
this little guy within you.
and that is the ball game. That's the gold ring. We're so conditioned to think that it's something external. And don't get me wrong, bring on the house and the relationship and the bank account and all the things. Nothing wrong with that. We're the one that assigns its value. But if I'm assigning its value as related to how I value myself, that's what trips me up. But once I do this inner work and I'm willing to sit with that, then guess what? The things come, but they have a different value to me now. I don't see them as my worthiness. I don't see them as a reflection of who I am. They're lovely and they're fun and we can play with it. Nothing wrong with any of that. But it's not the life giving oxygen that I thought it was once upon a time.
Mm,
And like working with clients and so many clients who have accumulated a lot of external wealth. I know that you work with them, I've worked with them, a lot of validation from the external world, and yet they're sitting there and it's just not enough. They feel that something's missing because it
yeah.
is, because we're
I
focused on the external. Please go ahead.
I feel so privileged to get to work with so many
Yeah,
individuals, because that's what I ultimately see that makes us all unified and the same.
Yeah.
So many clients who have Academy Awards or are high level executives or have all the things in life, be it a relationship, children, wealth, success, accolades at the highest of levels, peak performers. And yet, what you're saying, if they are thinking that those things will bring them something, as we're all trained. That's why I wanted to do
Correct.
this episode or a series of episodes on manifestation, because we're so conditioned to think that the outer world will supply what really the inner world needs. We're so conditioned that it's about the outer world and outer success and the kids and the relationship. And what you're speaking of, the way that I break it down is the distinction between need and want,
Mm,
need and desire. And so what the way that I'm perceiving what you're saying is that early on, this little guy within you, he actually thought he needed a relationship, another individual, whatever it was, wealth, a house. He thought those friends would bring him a sense of worth. And
right.
that is what we're all conditioned to believe in our culture. And you then really nurtured him, that place inside of you, and you were the supplier of his worth. You said, "Oh, honey, I see you. You're important to me. I've got you. I understand. I see why you would want these friends. I see what you're looking for. I see, and I'm here to tell you, you're worthy to me. You matter to me." And then once those places within us are satiated, are soothed, they feel safe, as you said, there is an inner relationship, an inner bonding within you that brings two fragmented places within you back together. It's a coming
Exactly.
home to
That
yourself,
little
right?
boy begins to integrate with the grown man, and they become one.
Yes.
And
And
now
so
life takes on, go please. And so,
and so now
yeah.
you don't need the house. You don't need the friends. You may want to be in like-minded community. You may want to be in a relationship, but you don't need those friends to fill the place that that little boy needed those friends or that relationship to fill, because you filled it. And when you fill it, you may now want the things. Who doesn't want more friends maybe, or like-minded individuals, or a beautiful home, or to be more comfortable? But now there's a distinction between I don't need it because I can supply everything I need within me. And
A
so
hundred percent.
right,
Yeah,
manifestation
yeah,
then doesn't become about something I need. I already
that's
have
right.
everything I need.
Now it becomes playful. Now it becomes
Yes.
fun. Now it
Yes.
becomes like creative, like in the
Yes.
truest sense, right? And boy, you want to talk about eradicating codependency? Do this work. Codependent from
Say
person,
more. Say more.
codependent from capitalism, codependent from all of it, right? And it's like, because it's already here within us. That's why I went on that journey, as you know, when I gave everything away, and maybe that's for another podcast, but it was to have the experience of who am I without all those external, without the labels, without the different communities, without the home, without the office, without who am I really? And that's what began that journey of diving deep
So
to
maybe you can
discover
share.
that.
So Joe did a what I would consider a very radical act in your life, especially radical in today's culture that is all about acquiring and adding to, whether it's possessions, accolades, accomplishments, trophies, children, spouses,
All of it.
all of
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
acquiring all the accoutrements that we think
Right.
will finally bring us that worthiness. And you were guided to literally, everyone, imagine your life as John Lennon says in imagine no possessions.
Mm, mm,
Imagine no. So if we could all just take a moment, I'm sitting in a beautiful office space. I have my beautiful dog on my lap. I have a lovely home. I have all the lovely things that I could want. Imagine no possession. So, this is what Joe did. You literally, and I have had the privilege of
Mm.
knowing you before, during, and after. And so
Hmm.
I know, I can attest that you literally gave away your most beloved books, your
Hmm.
prized possessions, your Jeep, your car, your home, and you went on a quest and you truly learned who you are without the labels, without the possessions. Yes, a very radical act. I don't know how many listening would embark upon that, but I can see the freedom that it provided you.
Yeah, and nor is it necessary for
Yeah,
people to do that, to have this
right.
experience. It comes in a lot of different ways. That was just my way. And I tend to be a radical kind of guy, so there was an element of that that was very attractive to me.
Took the
What
words
was
right
it
out of
like,
my mouth.
right? So it's like, why not? It's like, what the heck? And that I was 60. And I will tell you that the night before I began that journey and to walk out of Los Angeles with just a backpack and a tent and my cell phone and leaving behind everything, I wanted to share with people the primary impetus for doing this was I was working with clients and they would come in and we would have these experiences every week. And then they would leave feeling good and they come back the following week and, dealing with the same issues. And something was missing. As a therapist, as a practitioner, I just couldn't in good conscience any longer sit with people because I felt that I wasn't helping them in the way that I knew there was some other way. There was something
Mm.
missing, and I didn't know what that something was, but I couldn't in good conscience continue to see clients. And I knew that the work was to be done within myself. And so in working with somebody, it was about really letting go. Thank you, John Lennon, of all the possessions, absolutely everything, including titles, including my 20-year community, spiritual community, my recovery community. Really, who would I be without any labels whatsoever or possessions? And I didn't know, but I wanted to find that out more than anything else. It's like when you say, Susie, you want more than anything else your connection with your soul. That is your commitment above everything. And I'm getting goosebumps. I have the same commitment to my soul. I want above all else to know what that is experientially, not intellectually. And so for me, it took that radical move and stepping out and going on that sojourn for almost 4 years. And it took me to many, many places. And boy, you were with me. Many times I would check in because I thought I've just lost my mind. And then you would say, well, that's sort of the point, isn't it? It was like, it's like, yeah, but it was terrifying and liberating at the same time. Yeah.
Yes, and you're speaking, you did do this journey in a radical way that is accurate. And every one of us right now can ask ourselves, who am I at the
Yes.
soul level? Every one of us can do this unlayering process right now. We can ask ourselves, and this has everything to do with manifestation and why I call it manifesting from the soul. Because your journey and what you're speaking of was a journey to reconnect with your soul. You wanted to know, who is Joe? Who are you? Without any of the labels, without any of your conditioning of what you think you need to be or who you've been conditioned to think you are. And within every single one of us, and certainly anyone who's listening to this podcast around soul psychology, is interested in unlayering yourself.
Yes.
I would venture anyone listening to this point today is so interested. And there is a calling upon your soul. There is a calling upon your heart. Know thyself. Come home to yourself. Who are you at your most naked, most raw, most authentic, open, undefended self? What are those dreams within you? And the soul of you right now is so open-hearted, open-armed. It's the ultimate safety. It's come home to me. Come home to me. This world has nothing for you.
Yes.
You have something for this world. You have something to bring this world, but this world, it has nothing for you. So who are you at your soul, at your core? And when you are willing to unlayer, and I think for everyone listening, my unlayering process look very different from yours, but I've gone through the same shedding, and anyone who's known me, and you know this about me, I thought I needed a different house. I thought I needed a bigger bank account. I thought I needed many things from the outside. I thought I needed to manifest those things. And I learned, and why I'm so passionate about the manifestation process is that I can see how capitalism and cultural and this collective unhealed nature that we have induces us to think that we need something from the outside in. And the true manifestation process is an inside out job. And so when I can, as you said so eloquently earlier, when I can tap into the places inside of me that were so vulnerable and thought, I mean, I believed I needed more money and I needed a bigger house and those things would bring me something.
Yeah.
And when I think of the little girl within me, I think of her with the same compassion that you're speaking
Mm,
of. She
mm,
was conditioned to think at her core, she
yeah.
just needed to win that next piano contest. Just that next piano contest, then she'd be enough for her mom. Just that next piano contest, and then her mom would have that emotional connection that she was looking for. And so this little girl within me thought, I'm not enough as I am. I need that next piano contest. And as you were saying earlier, it just as an adult looked different. It wasn't a next piano contest anymore. It was a bigger house.
Right.
But it's the same
Right.
feeling. And
Right.
so for all of you listening, when you can learn to be present with that vulnerable place it's within every one of us. And when you nurture that place, you really get access to the soul of you. The soul of you knows that you need nothing. The soul of you knows that you are worthy and whole. When you come into that alignment, as you said, then the manifestation process gets fun because when I truly embodied that I need nothing more in this lifetime, if my body never changes, if my bank account never changes, if I have a relationship, don't have a relationship, Jamie stays, Jamie goes, Will stays connected to me, Will is the prodigal son, whatever happens in my life, I'm okay exactly as I am. I like me, I love me, I identify myself as much as humanly possible by my soul. I nurture these places. Then the manifestation process, it does become fun because I'm open and available to receive all that is here for me, but I'm not thinking that I need to get something. And so it twists that paradigm to put me into an effortless, open, undefended place. And I think that for so many of us in the arena of manifestation, we're taught that it's about efforting and doing and getting. I've learned that manifestation is about receiving. And I think most of us are much
Yes.
better at giving
Well,
than
we are, and we're
receiving.
also conditioned to, you get in there, you bootstrap it, and you make it happen. And we can create that way, make no mistake, and most people do. But the amount of stress that it comes with and fear that it comes with, and oftentimes underskirting that is a belief of scarcity and lack. So you're never able to fully enjoy it,
Yeah.
because you're afraid it's going to go away. That's all in the unconscious. But when you're willing to do the work that Susie is talking about and that I've been privileged to do, and really dive deep with this, there is a newfound freedom that will blow your mind. I don't know how else to say it. And look at there's a cost associated with it. It means
Mhm.
you have to give up the old life, which is painful because if that's all you know and that is your safety and security, well, who are you going to be when you let that go? But if you can get curious, it's an adventure that will yield a return on investment that will blow your mind. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps because that is my life, that is my experience. So now, like you, Susan, instead of trying to make anything happen, this is the phrase, I just make it welcome. And so I let go of the form, and I'm here to tell you, I live a life that I could have never imagined. And it's more than I could have ever imagined. I am happier. I am more at peace. I'm having more life experiences where there's connection because there's connection with me. There's connection with everything around me now. And it just keeps showing up in just these unique and wonderful and beautiful ways. This is the adventure. This is the real, for me anyway, this is like I live a nomadic life right now. Maybe that'll change tomorrow. I don't know. I'm open and available. And I just say, yes, thank you, and allow it to continue to unfold before me. Like you said, it's not passive. What am I trying to say, Suze? You're so good with words.
Receptive.
Receptive. Thank you. Yeah.
You're very receptive. So I'd love as we bring this particular episode to to a close, to a completion, to a full circle, I'd like to spend a little moment speaking about this part of it because we've
Yeah.
spoken a lot about the inner process. And for sure, I always say I invest 98% of
Yeah.
my life on the inner process because I know the external takes care of itself. So
100%. Yeah.
98% of my investment is on healing the inner and learning how to be present with these vulnerable places so that I do learn to fulfill my unmet needs. And we have spoken about that. And you can look up our Soul Psychology Academy. You can sign up for the wait list. We're starting new classes in January, an inner child class this fall. So there's more to dive into. But I would love to speak a little bit to this outer manifestation process because it is accurate. And you also work with many high level
Mm.
clients, people that are manifesting so called, quote, success in the world, as I do. And it is accurate for everyone listening. We are taught that manifestation is about the senses and what we can see and taste and smell. It's the bank account, it's the accolades, it's the success. So people listening may be saying, well, I do want to have a
Mm.
thriving therapy practice. I do want to make seven figures. That is of interest to me. And I am interested in wanting it rather than needing it. And
Hmm.
so you're aligned. So as we come to completion, you're tapping into it. You're speaking, Joe, about now that you have healed and come into alignment inwardly, the external happens rather effortlessly. I'm getting to a question here, sorry. It's a little long-winded. In my experience with clients, and we see so much on Instagram and presentation, and I'm always struck by right now, the real trend is manifesting from the feminine and manifesting from the feminine. And I see certain individuals that I happen to know up close and personal, and they're saying, oh, I sold my business for $32 million dollars, and I this and I that. And everyone's following along. And then a year later, then they're saying, and I was burned out. I was exhausted. I was on the doing treadmill. I
Mm.
almost lost my
Hmm.
marriage.
Mm.
And I'm not
Yeah.
exaggerating.
Yeah.
And so my interest is in assisting people to learn to manifest in a very effortless, feminine soul way and how that works for you now.
Wow, you said a lot right there. And so I'll try and encapsulate my experience. The way it works for me now is I'm not attached to the form. Please hear this. I'm not attached to the form of what anything, and I mean anything, needs to look like. Because if I'm attached to the form, I'm operating from the mind, and the mind is limited. I'm 68. It only has 68 years of information in. That's all it can create from. I'm not interested in that anymore. What I'm interested in is if we say it's a friendly universe and that it is filled with unlimited possibility and potentiality, like for real, right? And that I'm going to surrender to that, that's a heart thing. So going all the way, I'm getting goosebumps again, going all the way back to the Einstein, it's a friendly universe, because I've done the inner healing and that part of me really knows it because that's the experience it's had, that it shows up in all kinds of ways. It's part of the reason I went on that journey. I wanted to see it show up. If that's true, show me, universe, right? And so now in my life, what I do is I trust implicitly that the universe is in fact for me, and I let go of the form of what anything needs to look like, and it's showing up in ways that are beyond what my mental mind of 68 years could have ever created because it's limited. So it has me living in particular ways and working with particular people and traveling in specific ways that I could have never imagined happening before. And look at, is it fun? You bet it is. Am I having a blast with it? 100%. Am I also under no illusion that it's just the things of the world? Yeah. So I can appreciate it, I enjoy it, but it does not define who I am. That I already have. So I can go on this journey totally free and open and receptive and available. I've been working in London since September. And somebody said, "Well, when do you come back?" It's like, "Well, I have a return ticket October 3rd, so that looks like when I'm coming back." Do I know that for sure? No, because the universe may show up at the end of this month and say, "Hey, how about over here?" And guess what? I'll at that point in time, I'll get a sense of, yeah, let's go over there and do this work. So that's how it's showing up for me. I
Yeah.
travel very lightly and live and not, look at it's not without its moments, of course. I'm still a guy on the planet, but overall, there's a sense of appreciation and gratitude and peace, fulfillment. My life's purpose is to do the work, Susie, that you and I are doing, to help others not just understand these principles, but begin to have an experience of it so they can free themselves and live the life that they're meant to live. I love what you said earlier, and this is so true. The world has nothing for me, but I have something for it. And it doesn't mean I don't appreciate what it has to offer. Bring it on. I love it. It's fun. It's great. It's exciting, but it's not the thing itself. That resides within. And you know what? I've got that.
Oh, that's just golden.
Yeah.
It's golden. My heart is lighting up. And so, for anyone listening and you are interested in giving more, being of more service, acquiring more, you're interested in wealth and the things that of this world that bring comfort and all the things. I think what Joe is saying, and I can relate in my own way, going back to that little girl within me, she thought that next piano contest would bring her love from her mom. And when I began giving that love myself to that little girl, I became the mom to that
Yeah.
little girl
Yeah.
that I always wanted. I gave the emotional connection. When I gave to myself what that little girl so desperately needed but did not receive, when I gave it, I completed that circle.
That's right.
That little girl within me now, she feels safe. She feels lovable. She feels enough. She feels worthy. She feels whole because I do that work still to this day, like brushing my teeth every single day. And because that work, that practice, it's a love affair inside of me. I provide for me. I
Yeah.
provide it for me. I need nothing from this world. If nothing in my outer world changes, I'm good because I have that circuitry inside of myself, a loving, intimate, I give that little girl what she needed and needs. And
Yes.
so it frees me. And I, like you, I never could have imagined a life this rich. I can say I'm definitely a wealthy woman because that inner bonding, that inner satiating the and fulfilling of that little girl's needs, because I don't need anything. I'm not pulling on this world anymore. And I used to pull on this world and it was very effortful. And
Yeah.
I'm not pulling on anything or anyone now. And so to your point then, the soul of us is a welcoming space. It's open. The soul of you, for everyone listening, the soul of you right now knows that you live in an abundant universe. So let's say some of you want a thriving coaching practice, per se, or you're looking for an intimate relationship. The soul of you knows that you don't need that from the outside. That is for you to give to yourself. But the soul of you knows, oh, I'm residing in a universe that has so much good for you. And as you become grateful for what you do have and the healing that you do create inside of yourself, you do open yourself up to a universal presence. And you said it, you become receptive. And so when you learn receiving is the ultimate, you open yourself up to be a vessel, to be an instrument of good on the planet. And the more good, the more service you can be to someone, it's a circulation, it's an exchange. When I am of service, then I open myself up for something to come back to me. And I don't need to be worried about how it's going to come back or what it's going to look
Yeah.
like.
So we'll circle all the way back to the universal law at work here. So when I've done the work to recognize the inner child work, right, and that little boy work, where he now feels whole because he is in his essence, but it's not intellectual. He feels the truth of that, that there's nothing missing, there's no lack, there's no limitation for real, then the universe must meet me there. It's not because I'm a good boy. It's just a law in motion. It's just going to reflect back the greater truth that's actually always been there, but there's nothing blocking it anymore. And so it keeps meeting me over and bigger and wider and more expansive and more joyous and more glorious. I mean, it just, there's no end in that, right? So that's the law at work. Not
Ex-
because I'm a good person, although I like to be, because virtue is its own reward. That's how I like to show up in the world to the best of my ability. But the universe is reflecting back my belief system that says I'm not lacking in any way.
Yeah.
There's no scarcity in who I am, in my soul. And that's for real. I can feel the truth of that. And so it says, well, great. Here, how about this? And I just say, yes, thank you. That's really how it works, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm lit up from the inside out. I hope that everyone listening is lit up from the inside out. Manifestation is such a layered process. There's so much. It's why it lights me up. I hope that everyone has been taking notes. You can come back, you can listen to this episode and apply it to the different areas in your life that you know are vulnerable, your own unmet needs. You can go back, you can create that relationship, and then you can open yourself to the good that is around you in a very feminine, soulful, effortless, and I want to say soul satisfying way.
Love that. Yeah.
And so I really thank you, Joe. I so value and appreciate the depths of our conversation. And I so value and appreciate your own willingness to be vulnerable and to share the depths within you, to show yourself to everyone listening. There was a moment towards the beginning of this episode where you dropped down into
Mm,
your heart and you revealed those vulnerable aspects of yourself. And I feel that that moment that you were willing to reveal those deeper places within you, it took this episode to a much deeper, richer place. And I'm very aware of that and very grateful. And it's one of the things that I really love about you. And so I thank you. And I thank all of you for your loyal listening. If there has been anything that you're receiving and has been of service to you, and you would share this episode with someone you want to see thriving, or you would subscribe or leave a 5-star review, any of the above will so assist this message to get out and so assist more individuals on planet Earth to receive
Mm.
these teachings and to truly thrive in their lives. So thank you. Much love, everyone. Give yourselves permission to thrive this week. And thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Much love, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If there was something in this conversation that spoke to you, we'd so appreciate it if you would take the time to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with women and mothers you know, because you are here to thrive. See you next time.